Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wise Tech for Wise Money, the podcast where we speak with founders, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders about how experience, strategy, technology come together to build better businesses. I'm Gary Wayne, founder of A1 Solutions, where we help companies grow more intelligently through strategy, smarter technology, and practical AI-driven automation. Today our title is Building a Modern Surveying Firm, Property Insights, Risk and the Future of Surveying. We're talking about property and the overall business and surveying markets and what really happens behind the scenes before someone buys a home. Joining me today is Mark O'Halloran, founder of Nuven Surveyors, based in Horsham, West Sussex. Mark founded Nuven around 10 years ago and has built the firm from a one-man startup into a growing surveying and property advisory business. Mark, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
A lot of my guests normally come from the US and further afield, so It's good to talk to someone who's down the road. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you first got into surveying and developed to where you are today.
Sure. Well, thanks for the introduction, firstly. I would say my story started probably at secondary school. I've always had a keen interest in property, so even choosing the right subjects for college that would then get me in the right course at university, it was very structured all the way back from secondary school, really. So yeah, went off to university for 3 years, Oxford Brookes University, studying real estate management. And then starting my property career pretty much straight away from graduating, starting at a multidisciplinary firm that focused on residential surveying, but also had a number of estate agency offices as well. But they'd done land and new homes, mortgages, planning, all sorts. So it was a really good exposure from day one for me in my property career. But from there I progressed to a national firm, large PLC, focusing on just residential surveying and valuation work for lending, but always had that itch that I needed to scratch and wanted to do something on my own, but didn't want to rush it because you've got to get some years under your belt in anything you do, really, just so you're well placed to really push forward, and particularly in a professional services firm, you need to know what you're talking about. So I made sure that I got the years behind me first before making the plunge, but yeah, pretty much just saved up for a year's worth of costs in the business, and off I went. But I think when I handed my notice in, I had my wife said she was pregnant with twins, so I didn't know to regret that decision, or it was kind of the catalyst actually. It had to work. But yeah, that annual budget got slashed in half very quickly, which was my first lesson in business. You can't even plan too much either. So yeah, but that's pretty much where I started. As you said, one-man band, and I've grown up to 22 employees now across pretty much the south of England. Again, just focusing on residential surveys, valuation work. We do a bit in land and new homes, off into the heritage sector as well, and some specialist valuation work.
Well, they say it takes 10 years before you become an expert. So obviously you took the 10 years and it worked out well.
Yeah, exactly.
You said obviously you work for PLC firms and smaller practices. What did you learn about the market and the business from those different environments, and what sort of impact and difference did you see from the PLC to the smaller companies?
That's a very good question, actually, because that is quite influential in how I run my business now. What I really liked from the smaller firm, when I say small firm, it's still an SME, so it was fairly big, but they certainly operated like a smaller firm, very personable, were great with training, really old school training in surveying, which is kind of lost a little bit now. But then moving onto the larger national firm, their processes, their structures, procedures, auditing, risk, it's much more structured. So I'm trying to take the best of both. So from a very early point in my business, I've adopted the best processes, systems, technology from day one, even with just myself, because I know that once we scale, it's easier to do so when it's already in place, as opposed to retrospectively bringing it in. So yeah, that was pretty much pretty much it. The personable service offered by the smaller firm, and then the larger firm with its operations and technology.
Well, what made you decide the timing to start your own firm?
I would say I've never got comfortable with, or too comfortable with my situation with money. I always reinvested something, whether it was when I was at the smaller firm, getting married or buying my first house. Once those life changing decisions were made, I thought, right, let's put the money into a new venture. It's something I've always wanted to do. I had even carpet cleaning businesses at university, so I've always had something about me to do something on my own, really. So for me, it was financial and getting those years of experience behind me, because that again is critical. I see too many surveyors, once they qualify, going on their own with all good intentions, but it can quite quickly unravel. When you're getting your first complaint, for example, how to deal with that. It's quite an emotional career, this.
What was your original vision for Nuven?
It wasn't to reinvent the wheel, it was to take what I'd learnt today and just do it better.
Right. For people outside the property world, tell us a bit more about what a residential survey actually involves, and what the expertise you bring to the table.
Sure. So here in England in particular, it's usually the home buyer that will get the survey done, not the seller. I would like the seller to do it more, if I'm honest, because it just pre-packages everything a lot nicer and will increase or reduce transaction times for property. But for us on the home buyer side, once you go under offer, you may have only gone and viewed that property once, maybe twice, and quite quickly as well. What we're instructed to do is either just a survey or a survey and a valuation. So the survey will be a very detailed report, sort of 45 to 65 pages long, looking at absolutely everything in that property, to make sure that what you're paying for it is the right amount of money, and to make sure that you're comfortable with any repairs that are needed for that property that you want to take on. So that's really what it comes down to, is risk, making sure that you're paying the right amount of money for it. We also report on some legal aspects that you can forward on to your solicitor for them to inquire a bit further, but it's really to give you confidence. At the end of the day, it's one of the biggest purchases you're ever going to make in your life. So we always say this in surveying, but you wouldn't buy a car necessarily without an MOT and a service in place. So why would you buy a house without a surveyor going around looking at every aspect of that property and reporting back to you?
Well, one thing I've always wondered, why is there such a gap generally, from my own experience, in what estate agents put a property on the market for and what the mortgage surveyor actually values a property at? It's never more, it's never even generally the same, even though you might, it might have been sold at that level and be compared to others similar, but it always comes in lower.
Yeah, again, great question, because there's always quite a big divide against surveyors and estate agents. We work very well with estate agents, actually. We're not really seen as the enemy, but we're very open with our communication, with what we can be, obviously, because our customer, we're bound, and there's conflicts of interest to a certain degree. But if you really strip it back, an estate agent, I'm not talking about all estate agents, but there'll be some estate agents that obviously just need to win the work, so they're going to go in and value it at a certain level, and then the seller's got some sort of expectation that it's going to be worth that. Well, in reality, a surveyor will always approach it, and I say this to my own staff, imagine it's your own money, your own cash. You need to go through this process properly and evidence our valuation. So we would always have to provide at least 3 other properties that have sold in the area within the last 6 to 12 months in particular, to really evidence why that value should be where it is. And also, particularly on a survey, if we're there for 2, 3, 4 hours in some circumstances, we're going to uncover some things that the agents wouldn't have discovered on their viewing as well. So it's not as easy to say, why is it different? We're there for longer. Our research is a lot more in depth. However, you can get surveyors that are more risk averse as well, naturally, because it's their liability. But for me, I always give the agent every opportunity to provide me evidence that can reach their valuation, basically, because I'm not arrogant enough to think that we're absolutely perfect. We've done our research, and it's a quick phone call to say, look, I'm not near that valuation. If you have evidence that I can't see that hasn't potentially made it onto Rightmove, because that's where we get all of our evidence from, I need to know about it. And they may give you 2, 3, 4, 5 other properties that have sold, but they're still not as good evidence as the evidence that I've got in front of me. So just because they provide us this additional evidence doesn't mean we change our opinion. We're just giving them an opportunity to provide something better.
So what's you said the surveyors at risk, so obviously they have to be a lot more careful. What is the risk?
So the risk, in its simplest form, if we get a valuation wrong in excess of, say, 10%, at the time of the valuation this is, so if a claim comes to us, let's just say for argument, hypothetical sake, we value something £100,000, and in 5 years' time that only sells for £80,000, there may be a claim against us for that difference in value. But the key point to make here is was the value at the time of the valuation correct or incorrect by that surveyor? It's not, because obviously time has changed, the market may change and just drop naturally. It isn't just because it's gone down by 20 grand that we should be sued. They go back to the valuation date, look at the evidence that the surveyor collated, and was that accurate at the time of the valuation date, yes or no?
What's the for viewers that aren't really that well versed, what's the difference between a mortgage valuation and a full survey?
So a mortgage valuation is for the lender, basically. There's some minimal or reduced liability for the buyer as well, but it's mainly geared up for the lender. Although the buyer generally pays for it, our client is the lender. So it's only really protecting their interest. Is it worth what it's worth? If they lent on this and they had to repossess it in 6 to 12 months' time, is their asset and their money protected, yes or no? Survey's completely different. That is for the buyer. That's for them to look at. Like I said earlier, there can be one where there's a valuation attached to it or not attached to it, but the survey is really defect led. Now, we don't go into defects on a valuation report, we're just looking at value. We might report some significant defects that are value, that do affect value, such as major structural movement, if it needs a new roof, rewire, drains affected, and therefore further reports. But they're value significant items, whereas a survey is very defect led. It's not an itinerary of every single defect, but it goes into a lot more detail than a valuation would. Valuation generally would be a couple of pages, more of a tick box report, and like I said, it's 45 to 65 pages probably for a survey, and there are various different levels of survey as well. It's just giving you a lot more information. Helps renegotiation as well. Some people use it for that. We do it mainly so they've got peace of mind and they're comfortable with what they're going in for. But yeah, that's the main difference. They're completely different, really.
And when you do a valuation, much emphasis is put on the local environment, economics, property trends in the country, etc. Are there allowances made for that? London suburban properties are on the up roughly. They've gone up 10% last year. Is all that looked at as well?
Absolutely. So whilst there is a method to evaluation, and we reference and refer to our Bible as being the Red Book, that says how we need to structure our valuation, the methodology behind it. However, what's most important is you must get a valuer that knows their patch. And there's no point getting a valuer that doesn't understand, and it could be very close. It might be a very tight patch in, say, London, like you were saying. So therefore their evidence has to be really locally based, and they must know their trends there. But Rightmove, we have a professional subscription there, which only surveyors can access, and it's brilliant. You get like a logbook of all the previous history of that particular property as well, so you can actually look at what's changed over a period of time. Okay, it's been extended, it's been on the market multiple times, and then it keeps reducing in value. So it's not just a case of just following a method. You have to sort of build a picture and a history up of that particular property and all those other comparable properties that you're comparing it. against. But knowing your local market is significant, and lenders won't allow valuers to lend outside a specific area regardless. But any new surveyors for us, we try and keep them on the tightest possible patch, because that is the number one key influencer on evaluation.
Are there different types of surveyors? Are there surveyors that work on like just pure costs and stuff like that for developers and building companies, as opposed to just guys who do the valuations and the surveys?
Absolutely. So this is so at university you literally learn a little bit in every area of surveying, and you can go off in so many different directions. It's kind of a bit scary, but I remember actually the first day at my first surveying job after graduating. I was lucky enough to go out with the managing director at the time, and he kind of just said to me, just forget what you learnt at university, you learn here now from day one. So it is completely different, and even if I wanted to go in a different direction, which I can do quite easily, bizarrely, once you're qualified, it would feel like a completely new career for me. So we don't do quantity surveying, for example. We don't do commercial surveying. We don't do agency, so you can do commercial agency or residential agency. There's loads of different avenues you can go down, but you don't have to, and this is my concern actually with how it's done at the RCS, is it's very difficult when you're bringing somebody else on that's maybe done a little bit in what we do now, residential survey and valuation, but an awful lot. You can quite quickly understand that actually they're not competent enough to do this particular area of surveying. So it's quite dangerous converting to another area.
But it's the same qualification.
Correct.
When you take on an instruction, whether it be from a lender or a buyer, what does the workflow look like from instruction to final report?
So if we go lender, it's very quick. So in terms of the property, I think the average is roughly six months from putting in an offer to completing. Our job, once we get instructed, we have to inspect and report in the same day when it comes to a valuation job. So it's very intense doing valuation work for the high street lenders, or short form valuation forms is what we refer to it as. We do our bit very, very, very quickly, and then the disappointing bit, it may then sit with solicitors for several weeks after that. So it's quite high pressured, and when I say high pressured, you've got to, let's say you have to do 5 valuations in the same day, and you've got to factor in travel time for that as well. But you have to value to a certain degree of accuracy within a certain period of time. That's the art of where we sit and what we do for lender work, and it is all about risk, so loan to value, etc. Survey work takes much longer, so we may inspect within a couple of weeks of being instructed, just due to work volumes. We would inspect in one day and sometimes report within 24 hours, but largely it's 3 to 5 working days a report will come back for something like that, which is still extremely quick compared to the industry average. But you need a time and a period of reflection on that survey report, whereas you don't need that reflection time on evaluation.
Okay. A question from me, really. Cladding. Yeah, why are apartments unable to be sold when there's cladding ongoing work, and obviously it's going to be completed? Yet no one will mortgage it, no one will, buy anything that's in the cladding process.
Again, just down to risk. The risk that it carries. Why would someone, lend on a property that's not it's not safe to do so? They're just protecting their portfolio and what they will and won't lend on. For several years it was an issue until the RSES and the lenders got together to build a framework for surveyors and guidance on what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And we actually avoided recruiting and operating in London for a few years until that really settled down. I didn't want to take the risk for PI, professional indemnity insurance. They see it as obviously more risky work, so our premiums would be going up. So I really wanted the dust to settle there and for clear guidance and advice to come forward from the RICS and from lenders, which is now in place, which is good. But the short answer, it comes down to risk, Gary.
Cool. What's the biggest challenges in running a surveying firm today?
I would say people, finding the right people. As good as technology is, it does de-skill the surveyor. So finding, and this is where we operate, we excel because we're trying to be the best surveyors that we can be and make the product and service better for the customer. So we really want the best of the best. So recruiting is so challenging, and I've been ready to scale nationwide for about 5 years, and the reality is we grow a little bit and then we go down a bit and then we grow a little bit more and go down a bit. It's the quality of the surveyors that are coming forward, and I think improvement is needed from the RICS on the training.
Do you have other branches across the country, or when you say going nationally, does that mean opening other offices, or just actually going, working from your hub nationally?
Yeah, so we've got central, our hub is in Horsham, so that's our central booking, sales team, operations, etc. All surveyors work from home, and that makes complete sense because they're out on the road most of the day. There's no need for them to be in a physical office, other than to want to be, I guess, and to see other people. But we're very good at communicating on Teams and meeting up throughout the year anyway, just to make people feel supported and included. But yeah, if we were to continue to scale, I would certainly get an office in the Midlands and then up north. We'd need hubs like that, so yeah, probably 3 across the country.
So your services cover damp surveys, listed building services, land sourcing for developers. How did those services evolve, and where most are you particularly busy?
Yeah, so most surveying firms that operate in our area really stay in their lane with just doing pre-purchase surveys and valuation work, which is fine, particularly the corporates, because they've got large contracts with the big lenders, and that has to come first. That has to take precedence. The short answer is I'm just inquisitive. I do something for a certain period of time, and then I want to learn more, and I want to figure out why it's damp. A lot of the times in surveys, if you find an issue, we then refer it to another specialist to come in and have a look. One of those is timber and damp issues. So for me, I'm like, well, why are we producing a report that we then have to say off the back of this? You need to get a timber and damp report. You need to get a specialist heritage surveyor to come and take a look at this aspect. We should be delivering that up front for the customer. Otherwise, we're part of the problem in delaying the property transaction. They're not getting much value from it, the customer, and they feel frustrated, and I would. Anything I do is always in the eyes of a customer what I would be happy with. And when you just sit back and you look at the survey report, you're like, you know what, I wouldn't actually be happy as a customer if I read this and now I had to go and do all these other things. Why hasn't this surveyor done it? So it's setting clear expectations up front for the customer, which we do. But yeah, like I said, just having that inquisitive mind to go and learn more and develop yourselves, that is key in surveying. You must learn something every day, every survey, everything you do, just get better and better and better, because as soon as you become that expert, all the other functions of your business, more endurable, great for the customer, easy to advertise, and you haven't got to spend thousands and thousands on marketing because you become that expert. And as technology and everything else expands, develops and gets better, we need to find a way to differentiate ourselves. And as good as technology is, and like I said, I've adopted it. I'm an early adopter of most technology, but I am slightly concerned with the direction that it's going in our industry. So if we can specialise in certain areas, one of them being heritage, a report, we're looking at all AI options now to help with report writing and all sorts, but I know that we'll be protected hugely down the heritage route, because that needs an expert that really understands the construction, the different repair techniques, the materials that are essential to use and what not to use, more importantly. And likewise, the valuation work, we're now specialising in the more complicated valuation work, which is not going to be done by AVMs, so automated valuation models and computers, because it carries a lot more high risk. and those particular lenders still need a physical inspection, and they still need someone with high expertise that can do that particular area. So they're the two areas that I'm really expanding, down the heritage route and down the more long-form complicated valuation work. So land valuations for developers, portfolio valuations, we could do buy-to-lets anyway, but multi-unit freehold blocks, for example, HMOs, all those more complicated stuff that the nationals don't like to touch, because like I said, it carries more risk, and if they've got 400 or 500 surveyors that they need to train and make sure everyone's doing it properly, it becomes harder. So I totally understand their model, but that's not where we want to sit. We want to sit in the more specialist sector, have a smaller team of experts that like learning, like improving, and then we build trust for our clients and customers.
You're expanding into design and architecture, I think you said. What's the thinking behind that move?
Again,
one other question I've got to ask is, do architects and surveyors cross over in their studies and what they learn, or is it really distinctly separate?
There is a slight crossover in building surveying and architecture with general practice surveyors, so they're more, like we said, the more home buyer surveyors, simple valuation work. They're just producing a pre-purchase report where then generally you have to hire an architect or a quantity surveyor, another surveying department to actually cost up an extension, for example, or make the drawings. So we really do sit in the property transaction side, but again, I'm just seeing an opportunity. We've got thousands and thousands of customers now. Why are we not continuing to help them once they've moved in? It's probably changed now, but when I first started, people moved house every 7 years. So if you think we've got another 7 years to get that customer potentially back, we're missing a huge opportunity to do other things. Design and architectural work for me was something I've wanted to do for a long time, but investing in a new service like that, where we're not winning, we haven't got the work to get that person busy from day one, is quite a big risk. It's like a new business, but we've got a great platform for it because we've got a great customer base. So again, if I was a customer and I wanted to extend and I liked how we supported them in the first instance, then why would they not use us to help us get planning permission for that rear extension, help with the design work, help with the plans, and similar. So that's how the heritage side has really developed as well, because I got really frustrated when I used to do surveys on listed buildings that it stopped there. I really wanted to get involved with the consultancy of overseeing those repairs and managing it and really bringing it back to its former glory. That's where I get my buzz from renovation works and seeing, giving a building another 100, 200, 300 years of life, and hence why we got this heritage chap join us recently to really drive that business forward. He's won awards for National Trust and all sorts, so he's definitely well placed for it. He's certainly the expert in his field. Architectural background as well, but funny enough, that's where I wanted to be as a kid. That was my ambition, was to be an architect, but unfortunately it's a 7-year course at university. I'm impatient and I didn't want to wait that long, so I chose a different career.
7 years?
Yeah.
That's a long time. Now, long term, you've mentioned building a one-stop property services platform, including surveying, mortgages, conveyancing. How realistic is that, and how difficult is that to accomplish?
Difficult and possibly unrealistic is the short answer for that one. I want to do it because I'm frustrated that it takes 6 months going under offer to moving in. Communication has never been good. I barely ever speak to conveyancers, but communication amongst all of those three disciplines is pretty poor. So I would love to be able to provide a service where you get an account manager that you're dealing with throughout the whole process, that places you with the mortgage advisor, that places you with the surveyor, that places you with the conveyancer, and just keeps everything moving forward nicely. Even if there's no news, they need to know that. Because from a consumer myself, I get so frustrated when you don't get updates on something, even if there is no update. At least you're showing that you're trying, and you're not just forgetting about it. It's not gone to the bottom of your pile, and that's where I get frustrated. So But it's very, very difficult, that, because even if we did this one-stop shop, which, you know, is still in my 5-year plan, but it's only as good as the other conveyancer in the chain as well. So we can do our part, but, you know, we can't work.
Well, you touched on something that's very important: the service side of it.
Yeah.
You know, people keeping you in touch. I mean, yeah, I'm still in an apartment at the moment, and there is no service. You know, you have to chase everybody and everything all the time.
Yeah,
So,
I don't
you know,
like
I
the
think
fact
what
you
you're
can't-
talking about is really needed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just in our industry. It's most web, you know, BT, any of these national firms, Sky. Getting hold of someone is so hard, and I hate that people don't display their, you know, the phone. I get it, you're cutting costs, and but for us, that's the number one thing, is you should be able to pick up the phone and speak to any surveyor, anyone in the office, whenever you want. The phone number's up there always. Just easy contact and being communicated well. It's just, that's how I like to operate, but, you know, I can understand from a cost point of view why other companies don't do that.
From with regard to the property market at the moment, how would you describe the current state? Is it cautious? Is it booming? You know, how is the property market generally?
If you'd asked me a few weeks ago, I would say that it's stable. In the run-up to any budget, it's always, you know, people put things on pause, so that's frustrating. Nothing really came out of the budget that was meaningful in the property market, or where we operate in the property market anyway. And then we had the typical seasonal slowdown around Christmas and New Year. So we've had a much slower seasonal slowdown this year than we would do normally. Had a good bounce back in Feb, and obviously with what's happening now, there's just a bit of uncertainty again. Unfortunately, with inflation, oil prices going up, is inflation going to go up? Mortgage products have now been beginning to be pulled, so interest rates could go up. So I would say there's a short-term blip going on at the moment. How long that lasts, I don't know, but it was certainly, you know, a few weeks ago before the budget, heading into a period of stability.
Are buyers generally more knowledgeable nowadays, more cautious, more picky, more demanding than times gone by?
Naturally, as house prices have gone up, that the investment is a much bigger risk than it's ever been before. So certainly more cautious. They use it. You can tell that they're using AI more when they're reading our reports.
Right.
So that's one, which we're ahead of. You know, that's not a problem, and why shouldn't they? That's the other thing. Why shouldn't they? I mean, I'm part of a group where, you know, that's come to the forefront. They're concerned that they're putting it through, but why shouldn't they? It's just another advisor. So yeah, they are cautious. They're using the surveys more for negotiation. Yeah, that's it. Really.
You said that you concentrate on residential. Is there any plans to get into commercial?
Yes, it's similar to the design and architecture and the heritage stuff. I want to make sure that whoever we bring in to lead that is an expert in their field. But like anything, we need to build up that pot of cash, because it will be an investment, and not an investment in assets, but in or technology. It will be an asset in that particular person, because they'll be expensive and the work won't be there straight away. So absolutely do want to. It's a natural progression for us. We get several inquiries already, not enough to warrant getting that person in from day one, until we've got that extra pot of cash to offset. But yeah, no, certainly we'll go down that route, particularly when times like this, when it's a little bit uncertain in the property market. I've got commercial surveyors at the moment, so they're the busiest they've ever been. It spreads our risks, and I'm all for that. That's why I like the multidisciplinary firm that I worked for originally. The more services we can offer in the different sectors, the better. Because when one's struggling, the other one will prop it up. If we put all our eggs in one basket and the property market takes a turn, it gets you into trouble quite quickly. So they're lessons I've learned over the 10 years. Always look after the cash.
But with the advent of people working from home, online shopping, there's a lot of commercial properties that are lying empty, and there's a lot of people basically looking to convert into flats, etc.
Yeah.
Although you're not involved in commercial per se, is that an area you would still get involved in at the moment? Commercial
Yeah.
conversions?
Yeah, so we do. My first employee actually was someone who worked in or headed our land and new homes division. So they were tasked. So they were an agent, no different to your high street agent, but they specialised in new build opportunities. So they would source land suitable for residential redevelopment, approach those landowners off market, and then place them with a developer that was prepared to put in the offer subject to planning or unconditional if it was a really good site. So that's something we still, they're now a consultant for us, so they're not full time, but we still do have that land division, and I like that area. That's where I'd love to be, in the next few years. If I was a developer myself, that's what the end goal is for me, or a part of the business in the group will be to do our own residential. Yeah, it is. It really gets my juices flowing. I'm doing all the hard work for the developer in the first instance. It all just comes down to cash and placing yourselves with the right investors. We do residual land valuations for the banks now, so we can look at a scheme and price it confidently. And then with the architectural team that we can put the plans in, we're building that framework quietly behind the scenes, but for now we're doing it for other people as opposed to for ourselves.
You talked about being ahead on technology, etc. Where do you see technology fitting in the property business, and how do you see it helping?
So in our core area, so residential pre-purchase surveys, I don't know how far in the future this will be, but I believe that a camera can be put in the middle of a room that will do some sort of 360 view and will start to write the report picking out the particular defects in that room. I know that's happening to a degree now, with people either wearing a camera or taking photos or videos, but in terms of just having something in the room that does the 365 for you already, so by the time you get back some of those defects are already pre-populated for you. Now, I'm a fan of that and also extremely afraid of that. That's perfect in a very experienced surveyor's hands. It's a tool to help them write the report. It may, well not may, I'm very confident it will de-skill the industry, unfortunately, and there'll be
people lazy.
Yeah, it will be, and there'll be property inspectors as opposed to qualified chartered surveyors, and that goes right back from when I started. I would dictate valuation reports, even though they were tick box forms, and someone would type and complete them for you. Or we spoke about the Red Book, which is the valuation framework for valuers. Lenders have their own guidance notes, so they may have a 30-page document. So this is what we lend on, this is what we don't want to lend on. Issues about cladding or Japanese knotweed, all these other things that may depart from the advice that are in that Red Book. Now, again, they were all printed off, so you'd have to go to the right page, and so you got to learn exactly what the lenders liked a lot better because you were reading. So now, most things are automated. So when I'm filling out the lender's form on an iPad, it understands what that lender likes, what it doesn't like. So it's very good for a risk point of view, and it starts pre-populating the report because it's only tick box. So this property is not suitable because it has, and that's because it's mapped really well. That technology. So even the new surveyors that are using that, they become really reliant on it, and they just forget to almost think, why does that lender not like it? Or even when you're filling out your site notes, why am I being asked this question? Because they're just filling it out and then it all pre-populates onto a report, they're not really thinking much. So that's why I'm concerned that when we do go further down the AI route, which will happen, it's inevitable, so we might as well get ahead of it, control it, and be the market leaders in it, is making sure that people are trained very, very well. It's no different to having a surveying tool that we've got now, a damp meter or a hygrometer. Just blindly reporting the information that's coming off of that device isn't good enough. Using an infrared camera, doing a thermal imaging survey is only good in the right surveyor's hand that can interpret it. So we're protected from a point of view that the consumers won't be able to do these, but I'm concerned that it will attract, de-skilled surveyors without proper in-house training. We're at risk there.
Just before we wrap up, I mean, if it was, if you had your magic wand, as I often say, and you could change one thing about the property industry overnight, what would it be?
I don't know how yet, but I've alluded to it a couple of times, is how long it takes to buy a property right now is not good enough. So, going perhaps more down the Scottish route of pre-packaging everything up, legal pack, getting your survey done up front, will absolutely speed that process up. That's frustrating for me. I feel that frustration from consumers. It's already the most stressful thing that they have to do, one of the most stressful things they have to do in their life.
Seems to be a UK thing, doesn't it, more than anything?
Yeah.
Because my sister-in-law just bought a place in the States. She lives in the States and she moved from Chicago to Nevada. She bought the property online. It was done in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, she knew the area, but she didn't even go and look at it. But it was done in 6 weeks.
That's incredible. Yeah, it needs to be reviewed. RSS are reviewing it. They've always talked about pre-purchase surveys. That's on the agenda again. Similar to Scotland. So
I think if you're selling the property, if you're selling anything, you should provide all the evidence as to why someone should buy it.
Yeah.
Why should they have to find out whether it's worth buying?
There you go. Absolutely.
At a cost, and then if it's no good, you lose. The poor buyers lost all their money and expense. It's ridiculous.
There's nothing to say the buyer can't also get another more detailed survey either. But at least if some effort's made up front and it's packaged, it narrows their search down.
Yeah, no, I think it's very good. Well, look, Mark, I've really enjoyed today. I think it's been a very good podcast. It's been very informative. I've certainly learned a lot more than I knew about what goes on in the property industry and how surveyors perform their tasks. I hope you've enjoyed being on the show.
Certainly have.
For people out there that see this, and it'll be on LinkedIn and all the social media platforms, and it won't just be one time, it'll be repeated many times. How can people get in touch with you?
Website. That's the easiest way. It's got all of our contact information on there. We're on LinkedIn as well, Facebook, all social media platforms. Private message me on LinkedIn if they want to. Okay,
excellent. Well, I'd like to thank you again for turning up and giving us your wisdom. Everybody, thank you for listening in. I'm Gary Wayne from A1 Solutions. Talk soon, Mark. Thank you.
Cheers, Gary. Thanks a lot.